All right, welcome back. This is at THS Mr. Jones, and we're going to talk about chapter 1.7, which is absolute value equations and inequalities. So we first want to talk about what is an absolute value. Well, absolute value is simply the distance away from zero. Now we can change the number we want to find the distance away from, but absolute value finds some distance, the base absolute value, which is the function f of x, absolute value of x. That finds the distance away from zero. So the absolute value has its own equation, and it looks like this. It's actually a piecewise function here. So we have that the absolute value of a equals a if a is greater than or equal to 0. The absolute value of a is minus a if a is less than 0. Now, basically all this is saying is if a is a positive number, then that's what the absolute value of a is. But if a is a negative number, then you want the opposite of a. Okay, and if a is 0, then the absolute value is 0. We have a couple properties here of absolute values that we want to talk about, as they may come handy later on down the road. That is that the absolute value of a is always greater than or equal to 0. Okay, you can never, because absolute value is a distance, we can never have a negative distance. Okay, even going backwards is still a positive distance. And the second one is the absolute value of negative a is the absolute value of a. The absolute value of AB is the absolute value of A times the absolute value of B. And we can also split up division. So the absolute value of A over B equals the absolute value of A divided by the absolute value of B. B cannot equal 0. Now, the one thing you cannot do is distribute. Okay, if I have 3 absolute value of x plus 1, you cannot distribute that. Okay? You cannot do that. Okay, so I don't want to see any distributing with this. Now, the main thing we have here, and this will be very important. Let's go ahead and say question 1 is what is the absolute value? So chapter 1.7 video question number 1 is what is the absolute value? What is absolute value? Question 2 for your video question is what is the difference between an equation and an inequality? So with the absolute value equation, okay, this also goes for inequality. If the absolute value of x equals a, then x equals a, or x equals minus a. Okay, one of those is true. Now, a bigger than or equal to 0. I also like to look at it like this, and this is a little bit easier as you move on to some harder problems. Now, this value in here, in order to be a, this value in here can either be positive or negative. So I like to look at it instead of this way, like the book has it. I like to say negative x equals a, and positive x equals a. which is if you just divide by -1 or 1, you get the same thing. Okay? So x is a, or negative x is a, and that's the method I'll be using when we talk about it. Okay, so like everything, there are steps to solving this. Okay, so steps to solve equations, and we'll tack on anything else we need for inequalities on this. So step 1 is to isolate absolute value. Okay, now remember, isolate means to get it on one side. Okay, so it's on a side all by itself. Everything else is moved to the other side. Step 2 is you're going to split into two equations or inequalities. Okay, so you're going to use this fact right here, x equals a, negative x equals a, and you're going to split those apart. Okay. Step 3 is you're going to solve these two from step 2. So solve two parts from step 2. Okay, now if you're dealing with an equation, you're done there, and we'll write as set / interval. Okay. Now, if you have inequalities, here you may have to graph first, okay, and then write your interval. Okay, so question 3 for your video is this. Question 3. If the absolute value of x equals 8, then x is what and what? Okay, so what can x be in those two cases? So I just kind of want to do a problem real quick. Okay, so let me look at, let's just look at this problem right here. So I have the absolute value of x plus 5 equals 7. Okay. So this stuff in here can either be positive or negative. So we'll split that into 2. The only way you can get rid of absolute value is to split it into 2 parts. So we'll say x plus 5 equals 7, or negative x plus 5 equals 7. And then we will solve each as normal. So x equals 2. We'll divide by x. So x plus 5 equals -7. Now think about this. When we do this and we have to divide by the negative, if we're dealing with inequalities, we're going to have to flip the direction of that sign. So that's why I do it on this side, because the book states that you have to flip, when you split it up, that you'll have to know to flip the sign. Okay, well, some people have a hard time remembering that you need to flip the direction of the sign. So if we do this, it'll automatically flip it for you. And then we subtract 5. X equals -12. Okay, so then it's set right as a set or an interval. So our set here is -12, comma 2. Okay, and those are your two numbers that are actually those are your two numbers that are 7 units away from -5. And we will get into all of that in another chapter. Okay, so you have your video questions. If you didn't catch them all, you need to rewatch some of the video. Here are your suggested problems. Number 83 is another mistake problem. I'm really liking those. I think they're gonna help you guys find your mistakes that you are making. So definitely check those out. If you're not doing this, okay, and you're not doing the suggested problems, and your grade's struggling, you need to be doing these. Okay, that's step one in getting your grade up. Okay. Again, if you have any questions, please let me know. This is at THS Mr. Jones signing off.